Hi, this is Scott Ganow, attorney at Faruki, Ireland & Cox, and welcome to our second installment on information privacy, the Internet of Things. Today we're going to talk about the cloud. What is the cloud and how does it impact the Internet of Things? And to help me do that, I have Tim Rettig, CEO of IntrustIT, a cloud services provider right here in southwestern Ohio. And today's session, we're going to have multiple sessions, but today's session is going to be about what is the cloud, establish a framework for what it is, what it's not, and how it may impact privacy and security. So Tim, can you tell us what the cloud is?
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Really, to tell you what the cloud is, I have to go back a little bit. I'm going to go back to the late 1800s. Because back in the late 1800s, when you had a manufacturing plant, you would build a power generation plant right next to it. It was very inefficient, it was very dirty, but it was the way that they operated back then. And over time, what happened is they consolidated those electrical generation plants into larger and larger power generation plants that we have today. And what allowed us to do that was economies of scale, and also the transmission lines with the grid that we're able to create. So now, instead of having all those individual power plants, we were able to connect those into a centralized generation plant, which is a lot more efficient. And what we're seeing now with computing is a very similar take, where what's happening is today we've got small businesses like the office that we're in today that have a little server room down the hallway where they're running a dozen or so servers in it. It's very inefficient for a company like that to operate, but it's the way we always have done it. And we've now, with fiber optics and microwave transmissions and all the other ways that we can interconnect with the internet, we're able to consolidate our data communications, our data processing into larger and larger data centers. And those data centers now are to the size and scale where they're called container data centers. So they will actually take a container, which is a shipping container, the size of a semi-tractor trailer, and they'll put 4,000 servers in that. And they'll move those into a building and they'll stack them too high, plug them into power and cooling and the internet, and you've got all this computing power that is now online and available for us to consume over the internet. So a lot different model than we've done historically, but it's following the same path that we saw back in the late 1800s with the change from these little individual power generation plants to these much more efficient generation plants.
And the cloud's nothing new. It's been with us for a while, has it not? It's just because the technologies have improved, things have gotten more efficient, business owners are wanting to move there as opposed to their existing models?
Correct. Yeah, so back in 2006 is really when it started to accelerate. Amazon decided that, a bookseller of all things, decided that they were able to create computing resources and storage more efficiently than most companies can do on their own. So what they did is they started to sell that off just on an hourly basis, computing power and storage on a monthly basis, which was revolutionary at the time. And since then, a lot of other companies have followed suit, like Rackspace and GoGrid and IBM and HP and Microsoft and Google. So now we have all these very competitive companies out there that are able to drive the cost of computing power down. So we benefit as consumers. For small businesses, we can take advantage of that.
And a cloud service provider like an Amazon has obviously hardware and server space in a variety of locations. They may be in the U.S., they may be outside the U.S. possibly. Is that true?
Yeah. Yeah, they will have dozens of data centers all over the world. And they'll have geo-redundancy so that you can put your data in one data center in Cincinnati or in somewhere in the U.S., and you could also have data somewhere else in another country and replicate between those two sites.
Okay, and at the business level, so if you're running a business, it's transparent to you, whether the server's down the hallway in a closet or in one of these large data centers. From a performance perspective, businesses aren't seeing really any change in performance. If anything, they're seeing an improvement potentially.
They are seeing an improvement depending upon how the software has been architected. So one of the problems you have in moving everything to the cloud right away is if your software is a legacy application, it may not be architected and work really well in a cloud environment. So you have to evaluate which loads you can move out to the cloud and how quickly you can migrate your company out there. So that's one of the things that we do, is figure out which applications are going to work well in the cloud and which ones you may want to keep on premise for a while until a replacement can be identified.
Okay, so lastly, when businesses are considering a move to the cloud, in a nutshell, what are the benefits they're seeking to obtain by moving there versus keeping them on site?
Well, it's economies of scale is a big one, obviously just like with utility power. And the other one is actually, a lot of times you get better security as a small business because your data could be in a little server room down the hallway and you have no power generation backup, so you don't have generation backup, you don't have redundant internet connections, and your security may not be very good physically, that your cleaning crew could come along and take your servers out of your space if you weren't paying attention. If you move that into a cloud environment where you've got 24/7 coverage for guards, you've got redundant internet connections, redundant power, you have a much more secure environment to move your systems into.
Well, thanks. As part of this first discussion, we've set the basis for what the cloud is, and as Tim's already suggested, we're going to talk about security next. If you're thinking about moving your data to the cloud, what's involved? What are some things that you should think about before making that jump with securing your data in the cloud environment? For today's Privacy Update, I'm Scott Ganow with Tim Rettig from IntrustIT.
Thank you.